Hola. Welcome to episode 22 of Word to Your Mama. Today we have Emmy Award winning producer Linda Morel. She won the Emmy for Key and Peele. She just wrapped up a Black Lady sketch show, second season on HBO. And we talk about an ongoing theme with a lot of guests on Word to Your Mama, the nonlinear career path. She was in music for a long time. She did casting, all different types of things. But she found her groove and her love producing sketch comedies in general. So we get into how she spent her pandemic, the pandemic year. We get to learn so much about her rad mom, Cholas Never Die. And we just get into how it's necessary to really cultivate people of color within this industry. And she's amazing. It was great to catch up. And I look forward to hopefully seeing her and her wonderful husband once it is safe. Because please believe it, we're still in a pandemic, peeps. Pandemic fatigue won't make it go away. So anyways, let's get into this amazing conversation with Linda Morel. Like, this is something, you know what I mean? To get me going. It calms me down and stuff like that. But I'm so excited to see you. Thank you so much. I know you're super busy, so I was like so excited that you had time to fit me in to do this. And I haven't seen you in forever.
I know. It's weird. I'm thinking like Chaz and Christina have been married now for like 10 years.
Right? Minimum. I don't even... So that's kind of first I wanted to start off with, how are you doing? I know you're out and about working, but still, it affects us all. How are you doing with everything this past year? Lockdown, unrest, this trash administration. How are you doing?
I actually, March 13th last year, we were a week away from shooting the second season of a Black Lady sketch show. I was out scouting. And HBO called and said, you're getting shut down. We're all getting shut down. And we were literally at an elementary school on the west side scouting. And they called and said, you have to leave now and send everybody home. Grab what you can from the office and bounce. And they told us 2 months, which everybody else in the industry was being told 2 weeks. So when I said 2 months to my team, they were like, 2 months. And I was like, I think they're being realistic, you know, and everybody else was like, no, we'll be back in 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. It wasn't 2 weeks. It wasn't even 2 months. But on March 13th that was our last day of work. March 17th, I took my mom to the emergency room because she was very puffy and she wasn't feeling good. And it's like the scariest thing that you'll ever do. My mom was 80.
Oh, wow.
She's 81 now, but she was 80 at the time. And I took her to Kaiser and they took her from me. And they were like in hazmat suits and they're like, you can't come in. And I watched them wheel my mom away from me through the window. Like it was just like a bad movie, right? And they said, call in 2 hours. So I called in 2 hours. They said she was being admitted and that I could check with the doctor in another few hours or whatever. I was able to go and see her the next day. And when I was there, I was hearing this fluid in her when she was talking. And I've heard it before because she's had pneumonia before. So they were taking her for an x-ray and like a chest x-ray. And I told the nurse, like, this is new, you know, whatever this is. And she said, okay, I'll let the doctor know. So they took her and they said, you know, once you leave, you can't come back. And I was like, okay. So my mom was like, don't worry, I'll be fine. She didn't seem out of it to me, but now when I talk to her, she doesn't remember any of this, which is good. But they called me an hour, like literally an hour later and said, your mom just went into respiratory distress. She authorized for us to intubate her. And now she's on a respirator and we're doing a COVID test and we're doing all this stuff, but she's in ICU. I was like, okay, fine. Meanwhile, my brother's in New York, my younger brother, my older brother's in Orange County. We get together and it was, she did not have COVID, which was amazing. She had a very rare type of pneumonia that most people don't survive, but she is an old chola, man. I swear she's a fighter. So she, she's from Echo Park.
Cholas never die.
Right? Oh, I'll find this picture. I got to send it to you. So when she got better, I have to send this picture to you. Anyway, yeah, so that was 6 weeks of watching my mom on an iPad, because I left her phone and her iPad there, and the nurses and doctors were so amazing. They would just answer it and let me talk to her and watch. She wasn't conscious or anything, but we would call 3 times a day and just look at her. And so, through this whole thing and thinking about other people, who are watching their parents, their husbands, their wives, their kids, whoever, grandparents, through a screen in a hospital, to me, that's the worst thing that you can ever experience, because you can't be there for them. You can't touch them. You can't talk to them, So that was 6 weeks. And then she got out of the hospital, and we had to turn her apartment into a hospital room, basically. And the next 8 months of my life was getting my mom back out of that bed and walking. And she turned 81 in September.
Awesome.
And I have video of her right now doing lunges,
Come on, that's awesome.
Yeah. So basically what happened is, after, during her recovery, she lost so much weight that she is no longer on insulin. She's no longer on blood pressure medication. She's no longer on anything. So it's really a testament of her and how strong she is, but really those things that come in and out, especially in our communities, right?
Please believe it.
Are so linked to weight and movement and
food,
how you feel your body, and food and what we eat and all that stuff. So she's tiny now.
And she feels better. She's doing lunges.
Oh yeah, no, she's doing great. So I'm like, pandemic, what? The only difference for me was that we were masked the whole time, because we had these amazing nurses and caregivers coming to help me. So yeah, that whole year, when I think about first pandemic year, I think about my mom going down, and then this whole journey of getting her back to actually healthier than what she was before.
That's
so
amazing.
I wasn't as affected as most people, and that was a long-winded story. Sorry about that. But
no, I love that. This is what we're talking about. It's just a convo. I love that.
Yeah. So it didn't affect me as badly as other people, and especially her, now that she's been well and better. She still has we call her trainer now, but her physical therapist that comes, my cousin, who doesn't go anywhere, she comes up every Saturday to cook with my mom, and hang out with her. And so my mom's not suffered that COVID fatigue that a lot of people have. We've been really able to at least, be around her and see her and stuff. So I feel really lucky for all the horrible things that we went through. To be where we're at today is pretty awesome. And then, of course, amazing. As she's getting better, I get the call that hey, you guys are going back in September, and I need you to start putting together all these COVID protocols. So that was a whole other part of my job that started, and it was frightening to think about going out and shooting in this environment, because it was really at the peak. And I was like, they're going to let us do this?
In LA, especially in LA.
Right. All on location. We weren't in a controlled environment. So
that's scary.
It was, but we did it. We did it with 17 COVID people on my team. 11 of them were nurses.
Oh, wow.
Testing every day. Double masking since day one. Hand washing stations every 30 feet before you can get to one.
Nice.
The way we were served food became really civilized, and it was handed to you boxed, and it was no longer catering style. Yeah. And I felt like, in general, because we were so careful, that people were just being healthier. And so I've seen a big upside to COVID, where I think people are like, this is awful, horrible, and whatever. It is awful, horrible, and obviously people are losing their lives. But if you have to look at an upside of it, it's made us more conscious of our surroundings,
Yes.
of what we touch, what we eat, what we not, and you can point that as being paranoid, right? But also just more common sense.
Yeah.
I've always been that one that wipes down the airplanes when I get on
Same.
because people are nasty.
People are hella nasty. Pre-COVID,
Yeah.
during COVID, nasty.
Yeah. So,
But yeah,
you
I'm
know,
so happy that that your mom made it to the other side and she's healthier than ever.
oh,
And that, the upside of that your production shut down, so you were able to focus on your mom is looking back, especially now, I'm sure is a gift, and that you were able to just focus on that and not let the other shit fuck you up like it did a lot of us, because you were just like, I got more important shit. I got my mom.
yeah.
And that's the great focus. Like for me, my savior was having an 8-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Because I know if I was even with the husband, Rocco, you know him, and I think we would have gotten sick, and I would have still felt alone. Like, you know how you could do as people creatives that work independently, but to have someone that you can focus your attention on, it kind of sucks you out of it. Even if you're impacted by it, you're just like, I gotta, this is my focus. And that's a gift, that's a huge gift. And during the pandemic, I was making sure to check on any of my friends that are family that were single,
Yeah.
because I know if I was single living by myself in LA, it would have been a wrap. Like it would have been hard. So it was like, check on your peoples, all this stuff like that. And I also wanted to backtrack on what you said, especially very important, about in our communities. This is something that we talk about with different guests on here as well. And I make a point, like if I have someone on that's an artist, they get, or whatever they're into, what their profession is, we talk a little bit about that, but we also talk about health, mental health, all that stuff, especially within our communities, right? Because it's something that's not talked about as much. And a good example is you talking about this, right? Someone's going to listen to this and hear this story, and it could be the catalyst to something, right? And when I talked to episode 6 guest Kano, who's Latino and he needs animation, and I wanted to make sure that he made a point to talk about his health journey that started at the beginning of the year before the pandemic, because I was watching Esteban on a live Instagram, right, with LA Taco. And I was like, here's someone that's from the neighborhood, that's looked up and regarded by so many people of his age group and younger, of people that never talk about health, mental health, physical health, and food. And LA Taco was like, LA Taco is a kind of like a news site.
Girl, I paid.
Right, you know. For those who are listening, like, it's an amazing news site that really is about the community. And they were asking, they have like a March Taco Madness thing. So they're asking, like, what's your favorite taco? He's like, well, before I could eat meat. So then he goes into how he almost lost his leg, how now he's vegetarian, and how because I remember seeing him walking around with the cane back like at different shows. And I was like, maybe he fucked up his leg or something. But no, he was having like nerve damage, and he was saying that the doctor was like, you need to either change the way you eat or you're going to lose a leg. Yeah. And so here's this guy who everyone's tuning into because he's like looked at as like the hard dude in the scene, and he's talking about he wished he would have changed the way he ate 20 years ago. Right. And now he has his leg, he could walk, and like those are the kind of things that need to go down and people need to hear from our community. So I loved the story of your mom being healthier than ever, like the upside of this COVID thing. Yeah. No more medications. Boom. Like I try to tell people in my family and just all around, I preach the gospel of food is medicine.
Yeah. No, I hear that. And I mean, Carlos and I, we're so matched in this way where it's like, we'll be down for Del Taco one day. We'll be down for street tacos, but then we'll, order very healthy things. Like if we're ordering in and things like that, like we have a very good balance because I also am diabetic. And so I've had to change up things. For me, it's been being physical, right? So I think it's in January, it was 5 years actually. We both started at Orange Theory Fitness, which I was like, oh, good. It's a 1 hour class. They talk you through it. It's great. And I stuck with it. We stuck with it. And it really set the foundation for me being physical. Now I'm 53.
You don't look it.
Thank you. But I'm actually in better shape now than I was in my 30s or 40s.
See?
And it's because for me, it was really less about the food, more about, it's never less about the food. It was more about balance, right?
Yeah.
About exercise. And I was always told you can't outrun a bad diet. So if you're seeing results and you're seeing yourself get stronger and healthier, that's a big part of it. And then I don't feel so horrible if I have something that's not, a nice leafy green vegetarian meal like that. I don't, because I don't want to live like that either.
Exactly.
For me personally, and it's about balance. But what I've done now is, and actually this is really important too. My younger brother, who's also a producer in New York, used to say to me all the time that his editor, who had kids, would be like, oh, it's 7:00. I got to go. I got to get my kids, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, and then I'm here till 11:00. And I said, okay, but what about those days where you say, I got to go because I'm going to go work out for an hour. And then you could come back and work till 11:00 at night. Like, why are you not taking that time for you?
Yeah.
Why is it okay for somebody who's a parent to have a boundary and not you, just because you don't have
a kid? Yep.
You shouldn't have to not have these boundaries of like, I need some self-care time for me.
Yep.
And if that means sweating for half an hour or an hour, then that's what you do. And for years we had this conversation. It finally clicked in him because I got him going to Orange Theory in New York and he got the habit, right? It becomes a habit. So in that regard, working the stupid hours that we work or whatever, I will find that time to physically move around. And or like on Sundays, Carlos and I will take a 3.5 mile walk with our dog where it's like no phones. We just have conversations and balance. It's all about that.
That's
balance.
what it is. And it's a lifestyle change. Like you can't just change what you eat and not move. You can't just move and not, it's like, yeah, exactly. That's what we do too. Like, oh, we have to have some of this, like processed shit, but the next day, let's vegetarian it out for the day, and stuff like that. And then like, we'll do the meat again, and yeah, it's definitely a balance. So I wanted to kind of talk about, we met, right, correctly through Chaz and Christina.
Mm-hmm. And Richard Eduardo, through the whole connection there. I met Chaz and Christina through Richard, who I miss terribly. But he actually opened a lot of doors in terms of relationships and meeting some of the most amazing people. And I worked with him for a while back in the 90s. And he's the one that kind of introduced me to this whole art world. And ironically, when Carlos and I met in 2005, because I had all this knowledge from Richard and like I was so into the art that he was putting in front of me. Carlos already had all that knowledge, so because he was a super fan. So yeah, I think all roads lead back to Richard Eduardo. But yes, through Chaz and Christina, I think is when I first met you.
Yeah, that was great. And I was talking to Rock about it, and I was like, man, we haven't seen him in forever. And I think we had dinner at their house.
Yeah.
The house that they don't have anymore, but that house, I remember that was great. I mean, it was just like, I'm sure like Carlos probably felt the same way. It was like, I'm at Chaz's house right now.
I felt that way too. the little cards from their wedding?
Please
We have
believe it.
we have them framed and they're in my hallway right by my bedroom. Like, it's just, man, they're just amazing people.
Yeah. And I have like my name that he did before the wedding. He did Ritzy, and I have it on my forearm. And I'm at his house and I have his stuff tattooed on my body. Like, this is crazy right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I wanted to find out. So you mentioned, did you grow up in Echo Park?
No, I grew up in Eagle Rock.
In Eagle Rock.
Yeah. I grew up in Eagle Rock. My dad was from Puerto Rico, via New York.
Oh.
And my mom, actually, my grandmother was born in Mexico, but came to Denver. My mom was born in Denver, and they moved to Chavez Ravine back in the day. And when they all got booted out, you see where everybody settled, right? Chinatown, Little Armenia, around Hollywood, like everybody came down. And my family on my mom's side settled in Echo Park. So one day I was driving with my mom. This was probably like, I don't know, 10 or 11 years ago. I was driving with my mom through Echo Park. I was like, look, Mom, there's white people in Echo Park. They were all white people when we moved down here. That's where they all found.
They did the white flight, great white flight.
Yeah. She's got roots there, But yeah, so they were all, and then my mom's older sister was married to my dad's older brother. So 2 sisters, 2 brothers. So half of Echo Park was my family at that point.
Right.
Because they all lived within 3 houses of each other.
That's amazing.
I grew up in Eagle Rock, and my dad bought that house for its proximity to Dodger Stadium because he was a huge Dodgers fan. So grew up in Eagle Rock, and then I lived pretty much all over LA. I never really went west except for like a couple years where I was in Manhattan Beach. But for the most part, I've always stayed on the east side. And now we live in Altadena.
Oh, Altadena.
Which is basically the east side north.
Yeah. I have another friend that lives in Altadena, which I didn't know about till I got lost trying to go kind of close to JPL.
That's where I live. Yeah.
And then so I was like, oh, what is this? I've always heard of Altadena because I'm not from LA. So I was like, oh. And then I was like, oh, this is cute. Like, it's kind of naturey and stuff, if I'm correct. So the part that I was in. So what do you think what was your route of like, oh, I want to get into entertainment? Because another common theme is that the non-linear career path, right? Because the research that I did, tell me if I'm wrong, you started off doing, well, I don't know where you started, but I know that you were like William Morris, you did music, casting, like so many different things, but it's all entertainment. What was your route growing up? Have you ever thought of that? Like, what was your like, I want to do that shit?
You know what? My route growing up, for some reason, I thought I wanted to be a kinesiologist. I was really into science and heading down that path. And when I was 18, I got a job as through a friend of mine as what they would call a floater at a talent agency, which was Triad in Century City before it became part of William Morris. But Triad was known for their music roster. They had all the big names back then, which is why William Morris bought them. But so I just kind of got immersed in that situation at a talent agency, and I really connected with it socially. I loved music. I worked in half-hour comedy. So the agent I worked for packaged and sold Roseanne originally. So so I got a lot of education in comedians and how they go from stand-up to TV, or stand-up to film. And just the whole agency business was fascinating to me. And so I was going to like junior college, but then I had this job and that job started to kind of take over. Then they went to William Morris. I went with them, and that just kind of started me in an area of TV packaging where I met Culture Clash.
Amazing.
Toya and Rick Salinas. And the agent I worked for said, you know what, you'll get these guys. You'll get them. Like, come see the show. I want you to help me develop whatever. And so I did. And then I was like, started doing a hit list of like, who would be good producers for this? Like, how could we package this and sell it? And we put them together with these two guys that were doing a show called Comic Strip Live. And they were very liberal and they were very white, but they got it. And so we packaged it and sold the show. And that agent said, these guys are going to offer you a job. And I don't know if you want to stay with the agency, but you'll probably have to go through the trainee program, which I was already far beyond that. And then Richard Montoya called me and said, I don't want to offer you an assistant position because that's not, you should be coming out. So he said, how about casting? Do you like casting? I mean, you work at a talent agency. And I was like, sure. And I called the guy at the theater who I actually, they were at this theater for probably 6 months. And I started a friendship with this guy named Steve Adams, who he used to actually do casting. And I was like, dude, help me. I don't know what this job is. And I walked in first day, like working girl, right? Where I went to sit on the assistant's desk and they're like, that's your office over there. And I was like, oh. And it's weird to think back now because I actually just found this box of stuff that I've had forever. And some of them were the breakdowns that would come out like through fax,
Oh, yeah.
And I had people audition for me, which now I think is really funny. God, what's his name? He's on the Mayans now. He was on, oh my God, I can't think of his name. So embarrassing. Anyway, there's a bunch of Latino actors that were just kind of up and coming that auditioned for Culture Clash, and I have like all of their stuff. So weird. Diane Rodriguez, who actually sadly passed away last year, but she was the creative director of Center Theater Group, and I have her card that's got her photo and her resume on the back. So there's like a lot of people that came through there, and I did, I think, one season with them casting, and then they made me an associate producer because I hated casting. And then through Richard Montoya is how I met Richard Duardo.
And that all makes sense. Yeah.
That kind of started snaking through. I did this concert with them, and then I met a bunch of people in the music industry, and then I ended up at Universal Amphitheater.
That was my first office.
Was it?
Yep.
Who did you work with there?
I worked for Universal, and then they got bought by House of Blues Concerts, and then that was my first office, was there. Where Harry Potter is no longer there. Harry Potter is now.
I worked in that office too.
Yeah.
I worked in that office too. Wow, that was a fun time. That was a really fun time. And then from there, I had a friend call me from Warner Records that was like, hey, there are these two Latinas. They're artist development people, and they need an assistant. We think you would be really good for them. And I went and I met them. One was Katrina Fernandez. The other one was Marina Rota. And my first day with Katrina, she said, learn everything you can because I'm leaving this business. And I was like, oh, she's like, and I want to make sure that you're set up to do this job. Like, you can do this job. And she did. She left to produce films, and then I got promoted. And I stayed there for almost 9 years.
Oh, shit. Staying competitive in these dynamic times means having the right technology at work for your small or medium-sized business. Whether your goal is to grow, downsize, or modernize, Panoply BPO provides the right combination of tools, support, and affordability necessary to make it a reality. Visit panoplybpo.com. That's PANOPLY BPO.com wtym.com to schedule your no obligation consultation today. Mention WTYM and get your 13th month of service for free. PanoplyBPO.com. There is a better way. I thought you just like dipped into the music, but you were there for a while.
I was like half my life was in music.
Sure.
So I worked internationally. So I was based in England a lot. But yeah, no, I worked with Deftones and Neil Young, Chaka Khan. It was the 90s. It was a kind of an amazing time in music.
Yes.
So then when I left Warner's, I was kind of working with these DJs and doing remixes and stuff. And I got an opportunity to go back into TV, but it was for the Latino Laugh Festival for Showtime.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that created that also created Brothers Garcia for Nickelodeon.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of that festival, he knew who I was, and he was like, I want you to come and work on my TV show. And I was like, I haven't been in TV for 10 years. And at that, I wasn't doing what this kind of scripted show was. And so he wrote a letter and got me in the union. And I started as a production coordinator there. And the line producer, who sadly had to hire me because I was terrible, because I was learning the job, is still one of my dearest friends. Actually, I just hired her wife on my last show.
Nice.
And my whole trajectory has been through the hustle.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do now with like a lot of these kids that are coming up and working as PAs, or, my current assistant is you don't have to go to film school and all that stuff. Like, come in and learn the job and then hustle your way up.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky because I've found a few that's exactly that. Half of them are trying to pay their student loans, and the other half are like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't go and spend all that money. 'Cause they're doing the same thing, getting paid the same amount of money. So,
without having that built-in debt.
Yeah.
But it sounds like from your story, it's like it was you hustling, but also it sounds like people saw something in you that maybe you didn't see at the time. Like, oh, you're like, I've never done that before. But they're like, no, you could do this.
Yeah. It's very simple. It's not rocket science. Do your job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so amazing to me when I look around sometimes and I'm like, the people who are like, oh my God, they're so good. Yeah, they're doing their job.
Basic.
Right?
Exactly.
They're doing their job with pride, with diligence, with like, this is your job. Do it well.
Do it well.
Right?
And if you don't know, ask. And if you like, working artist relations for Coachella and Stagecoach for so many years, my homegirl who was running that, Shani, who I hope to have on in a future episode, you have to hire certain people that are not going to freak out with the talent, that know people in the industry, that maybe they're not performing or their clients are performing, but the agents and the managers, all that stuff. Like, you want to show them a good time and, know their names. So you want to hire those types of people. But on top of that, you also want to hire what she calls figure it outness.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, to not be babysat. It's just like, she's like, who do you know? Like, I need to hire someone. Do you know someone? Do you recommend that has that figured outness?
Yeah.
And if you fuck up, you're not going to be asked to come back the next year. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what you need, right? Because you have to ask when possible, when you absolutely don't know. But a lot of it is, I think a lot of it is common sense.
Yes. But it's interesting though, because someone could have some common sense, but not necessarily use it. You know what I'm saying? And I like to I always start people off here, right? I'm going to put you up here at the top in the beginning, and you're either going to stay there or you're going to sink. And if you stay there, then you get to the next level and you get to the top, right? And it's really, really interesting to me. Carlos once said to me, we were talking about someone, he was like, Don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about, on my last movie, or I do big features. Okay, you're still a PA though, bro. Right? You're still doing
Let me
your
see what you're
job.
going to bring to this
Right.
project.
Right. I expect more of you then, if that's the case. I expect more
Exactly.
of you. So I always feel like any of the opportunities, my brother had a friend that wanted to be in the industry. She thought she wanted to be an editor. She has a master's in finance from like Yale, and she wanted to be. And the thing is, she's really smart, but she did not know how to figure certain things out because she was a very linear thinker. So numbers make sense, right? Numbers always come out the same no matter what you do.
Yeah.
You can get to the same thing. There's too many variables, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of it, I'm going to say like 60% of it is your personality and what you're willing to do and how hard you work, and the other 40% is, some knowledge. But knowledge you can get. And I always feel like those opportunities came to me because I wasn't talking about it. I was just doing the damn thing. And I've had many times, let me tell you how many times I'm on a show and somebody thinks that maybe 10 years ago, they would be like, oh, I thought you were a PA, right? Because I'll move a trash can, because I'll get something, I'm not sitting up there pointing at shit. The other thing is, somebody walked up to me and said, hey, they're calling for makeup and hair. I said, oh, they're across the street over there. You should probably grab them, And the PA was like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were in makeup. And my mechanical guy's like, this is the producer. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And so I don't put myself above anybody that I'm working with. That PA is just as important to me as this director.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have expectations of you when you're here to work.
Yeah. And you're right. Like you can go to Yale, but you don't got that, the street smarts to figure it outness and stuff like that. And I realized that quick before I even, my first job was for Nate Dogg, but when I moved to LA, I got into, the activist scene, and I was asked to help out on this one concert at the El Rey. It was a Art Speaks, Refuse and Resist Against Police Brutality. And so I was like helping before that, like book certain things. And they're like, just come in and see how you can help. And then so I see a list of all these different things, or like, oh, the piano rental, da-da-da-da. So I was like, okay, I don't know. For me, it was easy. I was like, I'm just going to call another place and get the thing. And it was like I invented something.
Right.
They were like,
you did the basics.
I did the basics, but they acted like, they're like, how did you? I was like, I don't know. I thought it was common sense that if this one didn't work, I call around. I don't know. And they were like, oh my God. Like, it was mind blowing, because the people that they had before me were like, oh, that doesn't work. And that's it. And I was like, wow, like to me, that was common sense. But then I was young and just, living on my own for the first time after college. And I was like, that's when it hit me. I was like, wow, that's not common sense for everybody.
Right.
Like you would think, but I feel like coming into this industry, I feel like you learn, I don't know how it is now because things have shifted and changed, but for me, I felt it was I learned so much going into the corporate world, even though it was entertainment industry. I learned so much.
So did I.
The bureaucracy of shit, the bullshit of shit, you know what I'm saying? Egos and, what flies and what doesn't. But I talked about this before with other women that I had on here that were also in the music industry. We talked about that rap life. It was that mentality because during that time in any industry, there weren't that many women, let alone women of color. So it was like the crab in a barrel mentality.
Yep, I use that metaphor all the time.
I'm the only one, so you can't step on my toes. I'm not going to help you. But I was very fortunate enough that there was a couple of amazing women in rare positions of power that showed me the best examples. And
Yep.
I was like, that's what I want to be like. How was that for you? Because I tried to do some research, which alone in itself was hard to find numbers. But I saw that from a study from the 250 top domestic grossing films of the year in 2019, the percentage of women producers went from 24% in 1998 to 27% in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, where you're at now, women of color, who did you see? Who helped you? When was there a shift, if at all?
Ironically, it was all white men that helped me. Straight up.
Allies.
Seriously. That first agent I worked for at William Morris was a dick. Like he was so awful. I was terrified. I was a temp on his desk, right? His assistant quit. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to that desk. I'm going to get fired but I got in there. I looked through all of their shit. I was like, oh, okay, this is who he has lunch with every Wednesday. I'm going to call and confirm this. I'm going to do this and do this. I'm going to reorganize this. And when he came in, like he stank-eyed me straight, like give me this. And I went in there and I said to him, here's this, and this, and this. And he's looking at me and I said, I've been sitting down the hall for the last month. So I know Jonathan, your former assistant. I said, please don't yell at me. I'm a smart person. I'm capable of doing many things at one time. I'm very focused. Don't yell at me.
Ooh.
And he said, okay.
Amazing.
And girl, after that, I'd have these queens from the mailroom come up and we would be on our kiki, and be like, hey. And he would always kind of do this. And then after a while, he'd see that we were having fun. He would come out and he would get in it, and
amazing.
I feel like I softened him up, but he's the one that put me with Culture Clash. He's the one that actually said to me, you will do great things.
Oh.
You will do great things. He's like, you just need to walk through the doors that are open for you. And his name was Bill Gross, and we grew apart after I started on my path. He always kind of checked in with me every once in a while. And then I hadn't spoken to him in years. And it was in 2006, I think, or end of 2005. I reached out to him through LinkedIn. And he was like, oh my God, I was just talking about you. You were my best assistant ever. And I've been trying to follow along with what you're doing. Call me on Friday. Let's have a meal. Let's sit down. I haven't seen you forever. And so I called on Friday and I never got a call back. And on Monday, I got an email from his business partner that said that he passed away over the weekend. And the last thing that I had sent him was this email that I know he read, that told him how much he changed my life. Because he didn't see anything but a hard worker.
Yeah.
And didn't see anything but somebody who was capable. They just needed the opportunity. And so that was white man number one.
And what a gift you were able to, that he read it before he passed.
Read it. Yeah.
That's a gift.
So yeah, he's always been sitting on my shoulder for sure, because I'm telling you, he was a motherfucker. He was such a dick, which made him such a good agent, but also there was this little soft underline to him. And one of his best friends and I are still good friends to this day.
That's awesome.
We still keep in touch. But so that was the first one. And then, much later, Jeff Valdez wasn't a white man, but, got me back into TV. And then when I hooked up with Keith Raskin, he opened another door for me and actually just trained me over the years to the point where then we became partners, and now we're doing stuff, at the same level in different places. He's on Kenan at NBC, and I just finished a Black Lady sketch show for HBO.
Dope.
So I give a lot of credit to those to those guys, but after some of the conversations I've had recently, I've given a lot of credit to those guys, but I was misplacing it because it wasn't about what they did for me. It's what I did for myself and how those doors were opened.
Yeah.
You can see the open door, but you can be held back by fear or lack of confidence or any of those things. And there's nothing to be afraid of. There really isn't. And now, working with like Robin Thede, who
amazing
is a showrunner, and she's executive producing her own shows and stuff, and she's actually had to work her way to the top. She's got an overall deal at Warner's now, and so it was nice to be around this last show. My entire staff were women of color.
So dope.
The minorities were the two white girls that I had, who I love. And even though them, like one of them, I make a joke. I'm like, well, she's from New Mexico, like New Mexican, but it was a rainbow of all women. My COVID nurse, when HBO asked me to hire someone, they gave me these candidates, and this woman, Brandi Alston, I looked at her resume and I was like, what? She is a Black woman. She was a Air Force combat medic in Afghanistan. So she has seen some shit.
Please believe it.
And she was working as a traveling nurse now. So she's retired from the Air Force, working as a traveling nurse in COVID units all over the country. And when I interviewed her, she was in a COVID unit in Texas. And she was like, she just told me this last weekend. She said, oh my God, when you came up on that screen and I saw that red lipstick and I was like, ooh, Hollywood people, like, tripping. And she thought that she didn't do well in her interview, but I'm thinking, I bow down to you and what you've done and what you're doing right now. And so we hired her. She got out here and she was like, girl, I wanted to quit week 2. She's like, I was ready to go back to Afghanistan. Y'all are something else. And I couldn't figure out what she was really like talking about. And I said, oh, the sense of entitlement.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
And what people complain about and whine about. I'm like, you're worried about wearing 2 masks? She's like, I was a nurse and couldn't get one. I would have to put my little surgical mask in a paper bag and overuse it by like 3 or 4 days, wondering if this is still working because they wouldn't give me any PPE. And we've got truckloads of it. So, it's perspective, and she put things in perspective for me as well. But going back to just women and women of color and a whole rainbow, I had one Filipino girl, one woman that was, she was Chinese and not Chinese American. She was actually Chinese and came here to go to college. Really, really smart woman. My production coordinator, she's from South LA. She's a badass, Black woman. And my production supervisor, who started as a PA for me 7 years ago, she started as a PA, then she was my assistant. And then I moved her into coordinator, got her in the union. And now this was the first time she was production supervising for me. And she's, her parents are Mexican and Guatemalan.
Amazing.
Right? So, like, you look around and it's like, this is this conversation of we have to hire people of color. We have to do this. We have to grow them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel a huge responsibility for that because I'm already here. Right. And I'm now getting some attention as a woman of color. Yeah. All of a sudden people want me to produce their shows. And I'm like, I do the same job, no matter where I go. But when I would go to hire, it's a Black lady sketch show, hire Black hair and makeup artists.
To handle Black fucking hair.
There aren't any.
Ugh.
Right? There's a handful and they're all booked and working.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing and wonderful. But how do we get those new people in? Right? How do we get, and so, so the conversation I'm having now with a lot of diversity people, that HBO has hired, this diversity team and all this stuff is, I'm not trying to find the Black prop master because there There isn't one, right? I'm trying to find this white prop master who I love and does a really good job to train people, to train women, train women of color, to train men of color. Like we have to start growing into this industry. You can't just be like, okay, now we just have to hire all Black people and call it, that's not how this works.
No,
This is about teaching. And so when I look around and I see my team, I was like, oh, we're doing the damn thing, because I'm moving people up.
Yeah.
Right. I am growing them. I am moving them up. So where I didn't have that woman that was there that I looked and I'm like, I want to be like that. I have the opportunity to be that person.
Please believe it. Please believe it. And you're reaching it back. I talked about it with Joseph Patel, who they just did that movie, Questlove's Summer Soul, the one on, I just talked to him and we were talking about that as of color in a certain positions, you have to reach back and pull people up. And then those people reach back and have to pull people up. Like you said, you have to cultivate this talent.
Right. Because
so
it doesn't exist right now.
Yeah.
Or it exists in a very, very, very small percentage. And that's one of the first things that Robin and I had actually butted heads on, where she's like, I need to look around and see all Black people on the set. And I said, great. Can you tell me where to find them? Because I don't see them. And I've been doing this long enough where I've got crew and if you look at who I bring in personally, it's a pretty good mix of people. And it includes having white men in there. You know what I mean? Like it's a mix of people. It's not about pushing them out. It's about inclusion.
Yeah.
And so I think that people lose sight of that. And so I will tell you right now, on this show that I just did on a Black Lady sketch show, I had 3 people who were not in the union in the hair department that we got them in the union. I made sure they got their days, right? They're in now. They have to pay their dues, take their things. They're in. I had 2. Transportation is notoriously white, right? For the Teamsters. Yeah. Over the last 10 years or so, I saw a lot of brown, like Latino faces coming through, which is amazing.
Nice.
Very, very few Black people in the Teamsters. Very few. I think maybe there's like 3 guys that are my brother-in-law's brothers, right? That like I know those 3 guys. That's it. But we got our cast van driver, Yolanda. She was driving motor coaches back and forth to Vegas, so she has her license and all that. We got her days. Black woman in the Teamsters.
Dope.
Her son Richard, who is a truck driver, has all of his licenses to do everything. Just needed a show, an opportunity, got him his days. Boom. That's another Black man in $3.99, right? Same thing in makeup. We got 2 girls that, like these 2 women who are fantastic at makeup, never had the opportunity to get in. These unions make it so hard.
I bet.
And so even for me with DGA, like they're still fighting me and don't want me in there. They count my days. But that's okay because I'm finding ways around it, right? And eventually they'll put me in the right spot in the DGA. But yeah, you can't, as a union or as an organization, say we're all about inclusion, or we want to start this initiative. It's okay. Listen to me. It's about starting people down here who work their way up and get experience. You can't take somebody and set them up to fail by putting them in a position that they're not ready for.
Exactly.
You can't, because you know what happens? That's when they turn around and say, see?
I told you. Yeah.
Right.
And we can't have that.
Nope. No.
You got to set them up for success.
Absolutely. And that means training.
Yeah. And also just knowing that, that there's all these different types of jobs. Like maybe you didn't know that you could be a driver and be in the union, or all these different things. And I don't know if you heard, and if you haven't, I'm definitely going to send you a link. My friend produces this one podcast called Sisters Who Brunch. And it's about Black women in the entertainment industry. And it started like, I think they did like a brunch thing, but now they have a podcast. So you hear these stories on how, you know, the hustle to try to get into these jobs that, you know, like that they didn't even know were opportunities, where the white kid comes and knows like a lot of shit going down. And I feel like it's about education, you know, just information.
Mentorship. You got to be available for these people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you have to be available. Because that's one of the things that sort of touched me, but also broke my heart a little bit. There was a young lady that came through, a friend of mine, who had reached out and said, all I want to do is be able to ask you some questions. I've looked at your career. You're where I see myself and like to be. Would you mind jumping on the phone with me for a little bit? And I was like, sure. You know, I do that all the time. And so she called me. We had a really nice conversation, about like an hour. And then when a position opened up, when we went back into production, I told my COVID team, I was like, you guys need PAs, call this girl. Get her in here. She came in, she hustled her ass off, worked her butt off, like really worked hard. Like I could see it. Yeah. Right. And then her bosses were telling me, oh, thank you so much for Faith. Like she's amazing. And I said, all I did was give her the opportunity. Right. Yeah. You just open the door. It's there for you, but you gotta hustle when you get in there. Right. And which she did. So where was I going with that? Oh, when we wrapped, the day that we wrapped, there were, and I looked at them, two little brown faces, her and this other kid, who were brand new, first time they've worked on a show. And I said, so what's up? How was your experience or whatever? And they're like, oh my gosh, we love this so much. And we're going to the next show with Kathy, with who they were working for. And I was like, oh, great. I was like, that's awesome. And I said, well, don't go too far away. You know, and the next thing I get, I'd love to have you guys back. And they said, thank you so much for talking to us. And I was like, talking to you? And they're like, yeah, but taking the time, like, we know that you have all this stuff going on here, but thank you for talking to us and seeing us. Ugh. And that to me was like, that's all I need to hear. Yeah. Right? Because they're excited and they have opportunity and they're going to use it. Yeah. Right? They're not that PA that wouldn't put a safety vest on. And then when I told him, put it on or leave, he was like, oh, what, like I don't have 100 other jobs? Ugh, now you got 99.
Peace. Bye. Deuces.
You know, the contrast of that kid with these two kids of like, we just want to get in here. And the number one question I get asked all the time, especially by like young Latinx kids, is, were your parents in the business? Who did you know? Who was that? I didn't know anybody. Yeah. You know? Yeah. If you call my brother right now, he's sitting at his desk. He's got 3 Emmys sitting behind him. I have 1. We are 2 kids. My dad worked at the post office for his career, and he was a musician, but his day job was the post office. And my mom stayed at home with us and then worked part-time at the school in the cafeteria. Right? Those are my parents. Yeah.
You knew no one.
They said, work or go to college, whatever you're going to do. You know, it wasn't that like, you're going to apply to 8 schools and do. Yeah. It wasn't that, because that wasn't their experience growing up. Right. Yeah. And we had a roof overhead and we always had food in our bellies. And my parents worked very hard to give us a good life, but they didn't. Now I'm working to give my mom that good life. Yeah. You know, everything I do now, I think of like, how can I make her more comfortable and better? My dad's gone now, but like, you know, I didn't have that uncle, that aunt, that parent in the business. This was pure drive and hustle. Yeah. And you work hard. You work hard.
Do you want to support original content that supports diverse voices? Why not support Word to Your Mama? You're listening to it right now. Become a patron. Head over to patreon.com/WTYM. There are 4 patron levels to choose from, including Good Looking Out, I'm down. Hell yeah, and please believe it. Benefits include patron shoutouts, exclusive patron-only content, and so much more. Head on over to patreon.com/WTYM to take your support to the next level. Gracias. You work hard. And it people, I think a lot of people don't understand, and I'm trying to instill this into the Supernatural Bear. It's like, your word is bond.
Yep.
You show via your actions as well, right? And that nothing else matters. You just always have to do your best, no matter who's looking, no matter who gives you praise for it. You always do your best because you're reaching for your personal excellence.
Yep.
And that's all you could do, right?
Yep.
And that's why I try to tell him, like, show him, like, always do your best. Because he'll be like, is teacher such and such is this for teacher such and such? Because we homeschool, right? But he has like some classes. And I was like, it doesn't matter who it's for. It doesn't matter who's going to see it. You always do your best.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that like, oh, I'm only going to hustle because such and such is watching. Or I'm only going to hustle. Like, it should be your life. Always do your best, no matter what.
Yeah.
So, and that's one thing I did want to talk to you about, your Emmy. How was that? Was it like something you always reached for, something you didn't care about? And then when it happened, how was that? You looked amazing. You always look amazing. But on that day, saw the pictures, you and Carlos, moi, amazing.
Thank you. I never thought it was possible. It was one of those things that you saw, growing up. Again, I wasn't on that trajectory to like TV, career. But as I got into it, it was like something that other people got, it wasn't really attainable. But as soon as I started working with Keegan and Jordan on Key and Peele, those guys are on some other shit. Like, I've not seen it since, to be quite honest. Like, what they were able to do, you can pull any sketch right now, any sketch from the last 4 seasons.
Still holds up.
Because I wasn't on the first season, and you could be like, oh, that a cappella sketch, where they. And I'd be like, oh yeah, we were at Mission College. I remember that day. Our van got stolen. It is so ingrained. I was so in the moment there that I just sucked all of it in. And so when we got nominated the first year and got beat by Amy Schumer, I was a little pissed. And people are like, oh, it's an honor to be nominated. I'm like, yeah, but like, you want to win, right? That moment, I will never forget. Sitting there when they called us, it was so surreal. It was so surreal. And going up on that stage, like, you don't think that there's millions of people across the world, not even the country, the world, like, watching.
Yeah.
And to some people, they didn't know who that show was, so it didn't matter. To other people who were like, yes, that show deserves everything. But the producers, Ian Roberts and Jay Martell, the 2 executive producers, were, and plus Keegan and Jordan as the other executive producers, were the most collaborative people you could ever work with. And so everything in that Emmy means everything to me because of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was there to facilitate their vision, but we really worked together to make it happen. And I remember the Emmy billboards for that year. They had some big billboards down on Beverly that said, "If you don't vote for us, you're racist." And I was like, oh, okay.
Love it.
Because
love that campaign.
Kind of starting, right? That's when the whole thing was kind of starting of like, where all the Black folks at? Where are the people of color in here, Yeah. So to win for that means a lot. Never thought it was possible. Now, my younger brother, Mark, has 3 for Queer Eye.
Amazing.
And him being a gay man winning for Queer Eye was also the same type of thing where it's like, we never thought, and I went with him both times last year. Obviously there was no Emmys, but And we have this thing where I'm like, we're basically 1-to-1 because you can't win more than once for the same show or it doesn't count.
Oh. So the score is 1-to-1, it's tied.
Yeah. But Mark and I, when we were kids, used to sit on, because we were latchkey kids, right? My mom would go part-time work in the summer. And he and I would sit on the couch, foot to foot, one blanket, and always had some sort of baked good, some muffins or cupcakes or something. And we would just watch TV. Like that was just our thing, right? It was like, do you want to go outside and play? We're like, nope, because what's happening is on right now. And, and I always wondered, I was like, why are you such a like after 2001, I'm like, why are you such a sassy gay man? You turn into a black woman. He was like, oh, because I was raised by Florence, the maid. I was raised by, forgot what her, Dee Dee and What's Happening. Like,
Totally.
that's what we watched. So then the night that he won the first one, Carlos came and my mom, we were at the London Hotel and I had stayed over in my brother's room. And the next day, Carlos brought my Emmy and we recreated our childhood sitting on the sofa with one blanket. We ordered some muffins from the hotel and we had a little basket of muffins between us and we were like watching TV and we took this picture. And I wish we would have had that picture as kids because that night I remember him looking at me being like, we're two little Mexican Puerto Rican kids from Eagle Rock. Like, what are we doing? And I said, we're winning. That's what we're doing.
Winning. Yes.
So I'm hopeful, I'd love Black Lady Sketch Show to get some love.
Yes.
I think that people haven't really discovered it yet. Maybe now with pandemic viewing, they've kind of gone through it because there's only 7,000 shows on TV and accessible. But yeah, we'll see where this goes. I think there's another one in my future. I can feel it. I don't know if it's going to be this possible. This show is the one. I would hope it is, but I need to break this.
You need to beat him. Yeah, you need to beat him. That's amazing, and TV is so special. Like the Supernatural Bear always jokes. He's like, because my mom was raised by TV. And it's true. Yeah, I was latchkey kid or, I just hated where I lived and what was happening. So TV and music was my escape. And
what was your TV? Who were you raised by?
I remember vividly, like my earliest memory is like my mom and I were on welfare. So my daily lunch was Campbell's chicken soup, noodle soup, and a little bit, half a piece of whatever bread they were giving us, on food stamps, and that American cheese in the plastic. And then I'd watch Perry Mason and Andy Griffith Show. So mad years ago, I don't know, like 10 or 12 years ago, I was like, why do I love Law and Order so much? It calms me down. It calms me down. And then Law and Order regular is off, but like SVUs is still on. And, Rock would be like, you love this show. Like it calms you down. I was like, I wish it was a show. There was a channel where it's just on 24/7 because something about it calms me down. I was like, what is my root? My root is Perry Mason. Since I was 4 years old watching Perry Mason. But any show, because we didn't have that many, we didn't have like all the choices before, right? So it was like all the shows, the Carol Burnett show, like anything and everything that was on. And then as soon as MTV...
oh, forget it. Yeah.
Forget it. I will watch that shit all day long. But TV it's so special to me. And to be at a time where before, I think you saw the shift, of course. Actors would never fathom being on a TV series. It would be like beneath them, right?
Oh, now it's like
it's like quality fucking shit. Like I can't keep up of the quality. So it's a great time and I love it so much and I love movies and I love award season times because I get to watch all the panels, the writers round table, the actors, directors. I love it all. I consume it all. Like I feel like I have like a BA in watching all that type of shit. So yeah, TV I think it's for our generation, our age brackets was a huge, It really raised us.
Yeah.
And they're classics. The one thing I hated was MASH. As soon as I heard that theme, I had to bounce. I couldn't.
You know what's funny is I had this CD. This was back when I was working on Brothers Garcia. I had this CD of TV theme songs, right?
Yeah.
And I put it on, and the theme song from Barney Miller started, right, with that bass line.
Yeah.
And this guy walks into my office. He's like, no, turn it off. And I was like, why? And he goes, because that means it's time for me to go to bed.
Right.
You know, like he was just like, I couldn't watch it. And then years later, Carlos actually got really into Barney Miller and started watching, you know, those things because he was like, it was pretty edgy, you know, White Shadow, very edgy.
Yeah.
And when I'm going back to the Perry Mason thing for you, or even SVU, is what makes kind of sense with your background socially and like where you've come from and what you connected with and who you are now and how it's shaped you is that it's very clear to me that justice and resolution have always been important to you.
Yes.
And given you hope.
Yes.
And those type of shows, Perry Mason always got his man, right?
Yes.
Is that was the thing. And same thing with Law and Order. They always have resolution. There's always justice. And so I can see how somebody like you would connect with things in that vein because it really shaped who you are and what you believe as a person.
That's very insightful.
And for me with comedy, you know, my agent's like, speaking of Perry Mason, my agent was like, hey, they're looking for a producer on Perry Mason. And my first reaction is, oh, hell no, that's all night shoots. You know, I'm like, I don't want to work nights. I hate doing overnight shoots. But also, I'm like, I'm a half-hour comedy person. Like, I'm a comedy person. I love the laughter. I love, and again, because that's what I connected with as a kid. Like, for me, sassy humor, right? The Laverne and Shirley.
Shirley.
You know what I mean? Shirley on What's Happening, sassy.
Yes.
Florence, the Jeffersons, sassy. Golden Girls, all of them sassy.
Yeah.
Like that kind of comedy I really, really connect with. And so my dream job is to have, to be on that kind of, like, I would love to go back in time and work on the Golden Girls because I know what it feels like to be on set and laugh every day. And here's something kind of crazy. Paul Younger-Witt, do you know who he is?
Mm-mm.
If you start going back and watching all the TV shows from that time period, you'll see it was him and Norman Lear, right? Mm-hmm. Those were the two. But Paul Younger-Witt and his wife, Susan Harris. Susan Harris wrote most of the Golden Girls.
Oh, wow.
He was the executive producer on it. And my brother and I always looked up to him. Like, you see that name, it was burned into my brain. When Carlos and I started dabbling around with art publishing with Richard, we did the piece with the Phantom with, right?
Yeah.
And I had that piece framed, and in my, I did a movie called The Garden. No, what did it end up being called? It was called The Gardener when we did it. It was with Demian Bashir. If you've not seen this movie,
no.
It's so relevant. You should watch it now because it's pretty awesome. A Better Life. That's what it was called.
Okay.
Demian Bashir plays a migrant day worker, you know, like, so anyway, Paul Younger-Witt was oddly a producer on that show, on that movie. Him and like Jamie Gertz, like the weirdest producing team.
Jamie Gertz.
And he walked in and I was gobsmacked because I was like, he's a TV legend. Yeah. What is he doing on this little immigrant movie, right? He looked at that piece and he said, where did you get that? And I said, oh, actually, my husband and I published the piece. He took this photo on the side of a wall in Beverly back in the 90s, and we turned the photo into a screenprint with the artist. And he's like, I'd love to have one. Can I buy one? And I was like, yeah. So Carlos and I, Carlos was freaked out too. We were just like, what? And there was a bit of a connection. His son went to college and was good friends with a Japanese American artist, and I can't remember his name right now.
I was gonna say Tajin.
Yeah, Tajin. His son went to college with him and was friends with him, and so he was like really starting to explore street art and just art in general, right, for the younger generation. And he really loved this piece. It spoke to him. So Carlos and I wrapped one up and we went to his office. He asked if we would, drop it off personally. And so we went and we sat in his office and we had that moment of like all worlds colliding.
Right.
All worlds colliding. Oh yeah. Now I remember. It was his son, right? That was friends with him, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was like a weird.
Wow.
Like, how did all these worlds come together? And so when I start drawing all lines go back to Richard Dordo.
Wow. And did you like immediately call your brother?
Oh yeah. No,
You're
you're
like-
never going to guess where I'm sitting outside of right now. And we have those moments, right? It was just really recently, Kim Wayans was on our show.
Amazing.
And my brother and I had this joke about Little Magic.
Yes.
Forever. And I was like, Kim Wayans is here. I'd call him, or when you geek out on stuff.
Oh my
And it's the
God.
weirdest things. Raj from What's Happening.
Oh my goodness.
Tiffany Haddish was a PA on this show I was doing years ago. She was working as a PA. And so we were in this production meeting and they wanted to cast somebody for this specific role. And someone said, oh, Raj from What's Happening would be amazing. And she's a PA sitting in the back room. She's like, oh, y'all want to talk to Raj? He lives in my building. And he ain't doing shit. We're like, wait, what? She was funny back then. So she calls him and then he gets the part, right? He's doing this part. It was a show called Just Jordan on Nickelodeon. And we're in the lunch line. And I remember calling my brother. I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying right now. I'm dying because I'm standing next to Raj from What's Happening. And this is like the best thing ever. I'm like so excited. And I turn around and he's right here.
Oh my.
Right in my face, like 5 inches from me. He was like, that is the sweetest thing I've ever heard. He's like, you just made me feel so good. And I was like, I'm just really excited that you're here. And I don't fangirl out
Rarely.
normally, except from something like that, who's like,
From your childhood.
because I know him, right? Like I know his sister, I know his mom. He was a latchkey kid like me.
Exactly.
I know Wayne. Like it's that connection that you make. So again, going back to your Perry Mason and those things, like it really shapes who you are. I don't know how it's going to work now with kids, but at that time of television was really special.
Yes. It was like how they say when you read a book, it becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
These shows, because we didn't have that many options, only a couple of channels, 3 channels maybe the UFC, even if you get it to work right, a local channel or something, and that's it.
You better have pliers to change the channel.
I was just talking about the pliers. And I was telling the Supernatural Bear, I was like, I wasn't spoiled. So for the longest time, I had a black and white TV, even though color TVs were already a thing.
Right.
So it didn't matter that Perry Mason and all those shows were in black and white because my TV was black and white anyways until I got the color, right?
Yep.
And then going back to Kim Wayans, that show, I was in junior high when that show came out, and I was just talking about it the other day because she's problematic for me and I don't care, but I love that show so much. And every, I don't forget what day it went on. What was it, Saturday or Sunday? And then you go to school and everyone would reenact all that things.
Right. Or hit you with a sock.
Yeah. And so with every Christmas, I sing her and when they go 5 bowls of, I do the whole every Christmas, and he knows it, like it's my favorite fucking shit, and like I can't imagine being in her presence. Is she as lovely and as awesome as you hope she would be?
Yeah, she was great. She had so much fun, and it was a very, very hard day because we were up at Calamigos Ranch in Malibu, and there was a windstorm. So we were trying to be funny and not die. It was crazy. And it was really cold, and they were supposed to, they're in t-shirts and stuff. So they were troopers. Her especially. She was really funny and committed. I was very excited. Her, and then Kim Coles, the day
Oh,
we did with
come
Kim Coles.
on. Living
I was like,
single.
fuck it, living.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like,
I know the dances in the beginning,
yeah,
Big Les. Oh my
yeah,
God. It was
yeah,
just quality. And
right.
also, I was talking to Raka. It's a shame, for reasons we all know, that I can't show the Supernatural Bear the Cosby Show and show
Yeah,
him like how much it meant to us. Like,
yeah,
and how, like, when they would pretend that they were asking for rent and they moved all of Theo's shit out and stuff like those are the things that shaped us, and different world, and like it was just like I feel bad that I can't share that. Everything else, sure, but that it saddens me, kind of. You know
yeah.
what I'm
It
saying?
hurt.
It
It hurt.
hurts. It hurts. So I know. I said, I had you for an hour and a half. I have some questions from the audience. Do we have time for that?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Sweet. Okay. So, questions from the audience. The first one is from a wonderful and gorgeous creator and writer. Her name is Sean Sereno. Her question is, what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give to a writer creator who wants to get their work seen and or collab with others in the industry?
The whole development part and sales part of the business has been something I haven't dove too deeply in personally. I do have a couple projects with my brother right now that we're thinking about, and we're thinking the same kind of question, right?
Yeah.
I and I still believe this. Think that people respond better when you can show them your vision. And it's hard now because of the short attention span to thing. It's like, oh, how do I get someone to read this script? I'm like, oh, they ain't trying to spend 20 minutes reading your script. You know what I mean? It's really hard. I'm like, when you talk about collaborating, find like-minded people that are like, let's shoot one scene. Let's show them what this could be. Let's let you have to be able to put those words to life for people. That's one way, is to shoot something short, to go with the script, to give them a taste. Shoot the best possible thing that you can. And it doesn't need to be, I don't have $150,000 to shoot one day kind of situation, but it's like really connecting with other artists and people who are like down.
Yeah.
I've done that, where I shot a little, it's like an 8-minute piece for a kids show that we wanted to do. And I just found somebody who was like, oh my God, I'd love to direct this. Great. Here's my director. And then who do we know that's got 2 cameras and who's messing around with some editing software, and you find all these up and coming people that want to share their art as well, and try to connect yourself with those people. So that's one way. The other way, which I still am going down the path of, it needs to be very visual, is when you have a script put together, almost like a lookbook. So you get the vibe, you get people need to visually see stuff. I think the days of selling just a script on like that are very limited, not impossible. And I don't discourage it, but I feel like whenever I've been able to put something visual in front of people, the response is better, because it's like, oh, let me see what this is about. And then they go in and they read.
You help them see the vision as much as possible.
Yeah. And however that is for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've actually had somebody tell me recently that what they did is they grabbed some like amazing actors over Zoom or some online platform, and they did a table read. So you can kind of see how everything's flowing. Those things are really important. So yeah, that's my advice. Visual, like any kind of aid to get them interested in reading.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Because I know, listening to Hassan Minhaj, I messed up his name. Yeah, Minhaj. He was saying that he did the entire first show He just like was like, got the graphics people, da da da. And he just got it all together.
Yeah.
To do that instead of like, this is what I want to pitch. He was like, oh, what is it? He's like, oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And Issa, same thing. Issa Rae, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so usually it's only questions from the audience, but today it's special. Today it's questions and comments from the audience.
Oh, okay.
So this comment, Linda's a true leader. She finds the right people to do the job, and then she lets them do their jobs. She ensures that her film crew is run well by making sure everyone's needs are met and that every person who works for her is taken care of. Linda typically rolls with the same crew because after working for Linda, they remain fiercely loyal to her. Linda is driven by excellence, not her ego, and her crew immediately picks up on that, and the results are a reflection of that.
Oh, that's nice.
That's from your beautiful husband.
My biggest fan.
Your love is so cute. I was telling him too when I reached out. I was like, listen, I do this thing, and I like to, have people that either know the person I'm interviewing or they're in the same industry, like have some questions or comments or harassing stories or whatever. And so when I reached out to him, it was just this beautiful, statement on you. So I love it. And I told him, I was like, you guys are the cutest. You guys always been. You feel the love when you guys post or, I see pictures or videos of you and when I see you in person and I can't wait for the pandemic for it to be safe. So we can like break bread again and stuff like that. Now let's get into the not so rapid fire questions, the AKA slow as hell questions. First one, 3 words to describe yourself.
Me? Loyal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very loyal. Trusting to a fault. And spontaneous.
Nice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I ever received? If you get asked to do something and you don't know how to do it, say you do and figure it out.
Next one. What are you doing to dismantle the patriarchy? I think you answered that a lot already, but what else?
You have to be the change, right? Don't talk about it, be about it.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
That's really where it comes from. And, this whole thing on like being a Latinx woman and like all this stuff, I don't want to be, here's the thing that's a little crazy. I don't want to be looked at and singled out as this person.
Yeah.
I'm not about to dismantle you. I'm about to make room so I could be on that mantle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm not trying to take you down. I'm just trying to get there so that we're equal.
Yeah.
And that to me is more important than pulling everything down and rebuilding. Yeah. It's like, no, this is here. Yeah. It's going to be here. Yeah. So what you do is you get up there with them.
Infiltrate.
And that to me is more important than tearing things down, is to like build yourself up. You focus on yourself and not what they're doing. You focus on trying to be at that same level.
Yeah.
You work hard and you get there. Boom. That's how you win.
Love that. Love that. Okay, so what is the song that gets you hyped when you need it? When you need that oomph? When you need that extra motivation?
God. Okay, this is so crazy. It's like it's like a okay, don't make fun of me.
I won't. Never.
But I have to ask Carlos, because every time it comes on, I make a video of myself singing it in the car. Every time it comes on. And it's like a freestyle song. What is that song, Bae? They give me a call, boo.
Call me?
Is it Call Me?
How does it go? Sing it right now.
I'm not going to sing it, but I'm trying to, it's like last night, or I think of you. I want to be your friend,
baby. It's a game. It's all. Give me a call, boo. That's a really good song.
What is it? Ghost Town DJs.
Yes.
My boo. I don't care where I am. If I'm in the middle of Target and that shit comes on, I will act a fool. It's just what I do.
Amazing. That song. So, my mom passed away early, and then she's like my sister now. Her friends, her family took me in, and they're from the Bay. So everyone I met is from the Bay in college. They became my crew. So I'd spend a lot of time up in the Bay. And when we drive, I swear to God, every fucking single time we get into Bay range of KMEL, that song would come on.
Yep.
They love that fucking song up there. Like, I love it, but it reminds me of the Bay. So I love that song. That's special.
Why. It's just sort of a party thing for me. And it's stupid. And I just want cha-cha heels and big hair. And
it's great. It's good times.
To the house party.
Okay, last question. What will be your legacy?
What will be my legacy? The first thing that comes to my head are these 5 women I'm working with right now, my crew. Kernisha Wyatt, Emily Aldana, Katie Cordero, Gabriela Garcia, and Hannah Johnson. That's my legacy.
Amazing.
Yeah, because what they do from here on in, I think is the reflection of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes me a little emotional because I love them.
That's amazing. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much.
A little mistiness.
It's, you know what? Because it means a lot because we don't have it.
Right.
And it means a lot. So thank you so much, Linda, for taking the time. I love learning so much more about you, and it makes me love you even more. So thank you so much.
Miss you, and I love that you asked me to do this. It was just great to have just a chat and, to see your face and know that you're still doing your thing.
It's crazy times. We got to do what we got to do. But this has been an amazing thing that, I started during the pandemic, and I just get to reconnect with all my amazing people that maybe I haven't spoken to in a while, and to share the awesomeness that you guys are all doing, and to also just kind of sprinkle some wisdom, some insight, and just, keep it moving and inspire as many people as possible. And so I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's an honor. Keep doing the do, girl. Keep doing it.
Thank you. Your industry is loud and congested. How will you cut through the noise while maintaining brand integrity? Regardless of how talented and creative your core team is, nearly all businesses need some level of support in order to communicate their message. From brand identity and graphic design to experiential and digital, let the team at Ritzy Periwinkle help you speak your mind and translate rough thoughts into captivating action. Visit ritzyperiwinkle.com today to schedule a no-cost 30-minute consultation to discuss the best creative strategies for your business. That's ritzyperiwinkle.com. Ritzy Periwinkle. Let's build. And now, introducing
the Supernatural Bear Corner. Supernatural Bear. Hello, this is SMB16, and at the time of this recording, it's March, and I just wanted to give a big thanks to all the ladies. No one could really survive without ladies because they're amazing moms.
Ding, ding, ding.
And also, think about it. Think about it, guys who are ungrateful for the ladies and my mama. What? Males would never have existed if it weren't for one lady who had a boy for the first time. That is the truth. And that's what's up. So, Give it up for the ladies. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. This has been SMB.
Shooby-doo. Yeah. There it is, folks. Episode 22, Linda Morel. I told you, just dope people on this show. I'm very blessed, and as I'm getting into the 20s of number of episodes of this podcast, Word to Your Mama, that I started in September during the pandemic, it is kind of like that old school show, This Is Your Life. People come in, and I'm thinking of all the different people that have contributed in some way to my life, impacted my life, and I reach out. And maybe I talk to them on the reg, maybe I don't. But I reach out regardless, and I'm like, hey, I'm doing this, such and such, blah, blah, blah. Would you come on? And then I get to reconnect. I get to learn more about their amazing stories. I got dope people on here, and then I find out how much doper they are, right? They're like next level. And that's Linda right there. So it's amazing for me, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making it all the way over here to the end. How cute is my little man, the supernatural bear? And let's keep it moving. Until next time, we reap. Word to Your Mama is owned and produced by Ritzy P. Word to Your Mama theme intro is produced by Nico Beats. And as always, Word to Your Mama is brought to you by RitzyPeriwinkle.com and Panoply BPO